Hope your work week is off to a good start. You're watching the Daily Report for Monday, January 10th here in Korea. I'm Min Sun-hee. Korea's daily tally is on a decline, but concerns remain as Omicron triggers resurgences elsewhere. I have Kwon-soo standing by with the broader tallies. So let's begin here on the local front.
Sunny, the downward trend in COVID-19 infections appears to be continuing as this Monday the country has reported a little over 3,000 new cases. But despite a decline in domestic transmissions, there's been a rise in imported cases lately, with 239 of those reported as of 12 a.m. this Monday. Now, if we take a look at our graph, we've been in the 3,000s throughout the weekend, and also we're starting off in the 3,000s just like last Monday. However, it is also a slight downward decline compared to a week ago. Now, we've only got one place in the nation that reported a four-digit figure, Gyeonggi-do province. Seoul here has 781 new cases, and most places across the country are now reporting double-digit figures instead of triple digits. And another positive development is the decline in patients that are in severe or critical condition, as that has now dropped to the 700s. Let's move over to our general updates here. We've got a total of 667,390 COVID-19 infections in the country. And over the weekend now, the death toll has surpassed 6,000 with 34 additional fatalities reported this Monday. Going over to our vaccination figures, not all too much inoculations happened over the weekend, with a little over 1,000 and more than 4,400 who got either their first or second shots, whereas some 15,000 people got their additional shot over the weekend, or on Sunday, I should say, with 41% of the nation's population now having received that booster shot. Let's move over to the global figures. An additional 1.85 million cases were reported in the span of a day as of noon Korea time around the world, with some 3,500 new fatalities. Now, meanwhile, in the U.S., the average number of daily infections here has now risen to around 700,000. Also, India has said to see a six-fold jump in the past week. And over the weekend, Italy and Spain both have hit the 7 million milestone over the weekend. And those are the general updates that I have for now, but I'll see you back in a bit. Sunny?
Right, so thank you for the latest global tallies. Now, here on the local front, despite the steady decline in daily tallies, authorities are calling on members of the public to remain vigilant. Choi Min-jung is here with details on that. Min-jung, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Sunny.
Right, let's begin with the local COVID-19 situation in recent days that appears to be showing signs of improvement, Min-jung.
That's right, Sunny. The country has been seeing a decline in the number of infections since late December. The average daily tally for the first week of 2022 was around 3,600. This is a drop of more than 1,000 cases compared to the week ending 2021, which saw an average of 4,700 cases a day. But health authorities are still on high alert over the rising number of imported cases. On Monday, the country saw 239 imported cases, the second highest ever reported since the onset of the pandemic. The latest data showed that 7 out of 10 COVID-19 carriers from overseas had the Omicron variant.
Right, Min-jung, and staying with the Omicron variant, it's forecast to fuel an alarming rebound in cases in the weeks ahead, right?
Right. Health authorities are saying that the number of infections will surge during Seollal, the Korean Lunar New Year. This is mainly due to the Omicron variant. Let's take a listen.
It is not the time for us to let our guards down. As of now, the Omicron variant accounts for around 10% of infections, but because it is highly transmissible, experts say it will become the most dominant strain within the next month or two. The number of infections is expected to soar during Seollal, with many people traveling.
Some experts estimate daily infections will hit 20,000 and up to 2,000 severely ill patients a day in March due to Omicron. Authorities are set to lay out a response plan for Omicron as well as social distancing this week.
Right, this week. Meanwhile, Min-jung, what are health authorities here in the country saying about the new variant that was recently reported in Cyprus?
Right, authorities in Korea confirmed that no cases of the so-called Deltacron variant have been confirmed in the country, but they vowed to keep a close watch on the situation. The new strain, dubbed Deltacron, combines elements of both the Delta and Omicron variants, and it has been reportedly identified in Cyprus by a group of scientists over the weekend. According to local sources, the Deltacron cases were found in 25 samples, and analysis conducted by researchers in Cyprus show that the new strain was more often found in patients who were hospitalized with COVID-19 than those who weren't hospitalized. And the country's health minister said that the new variant is not a concern and that more details will be shared this week. However, numerous scientists, including a WHO expert, says Deltacron is unlikely to exist and was probably a result of contaminated tests.
Right, Min-jung, do keep us posted on that. Now, meanwhile, do remind us about the venues that require vaccine passes starting on this Monday here in the country.
Right, starting this Monday, vaccine passes will be required when entering department stores as well as large supermarkets. The government has expanded vaccine pass mandates from venues like indoor sports facilities, nightlife entertainment venues, to public venues like restaurants, cafes, as well as places of learning. Pass requirements at department stores and large supermarkets is one of the latest moves to curb the spread of the virus. And now, to go to these facilities, people will be required to be fully vaccinated or test negative for COVID-19 within the past 48 hours. But there are exceptions for those aged under 18, as they are exempt from the mandate. And those who are employees of department stores or large supermarkets can work regardless of vaccination status. However, people won't need a vaccine pass when shopping at small supermarkets and convenience stores. To give time for the changes to settle into place, there will be a grace period until the 16th.
Right, the 16th of this month then. Also starting on this Monday, Min-jung, vaccine passes that are 6 months old will no longer be valid, right? Tell us more.
That's right, Sunny. Vaccine passes that were issued to people who have gotten fully vaccinated more than 6 months ago are now invalid. The government imposed a 6-month expiration date on vaccine passes on January 3rd, and the 1-week grace period ended on Sunday. So starting today, those who received their final shot before July last year and haven't gotten booster shots yet will not be able to enter most venues without a negative PCR test. Now, with this new policy, more than 340,000 people will not be able to use their passes. But with the extra shot, they will be able to extend their expiration date for another 6 months. Individuals who violate the pass mandates will be fined 100,000 won, which is around $83.
Right. As always, Min-jung, thank you for that report. I'll see you back on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Right, on the international arena, vaccine passes have led to more demonstrations over in Europe this past weekend. I have Soa back at the desk with details on that. Soa, tell us more.
Right, Sunny. So these protests seem to have become the norm in Europe over the weekend, despite the new waves of infections that have been triggered by the highly contagious Omicron variant. Vaccine deniers and people that are frustrated over strict antivirus protocols continue to voice their anger. So let me give you a breakdown of what has happened over the weekend in Europe. First off, in Belgium's capital, Brussels, an estimated 5,000 demonstrators took part in a protest against COVID-19 restrictions on Sunday, with demonstrators criticizing vaccine pass requirements that are needed to enter restaurants, bars, and other public venues. Dozens were arrested, although the latest event was less violent than previous ones in the city. Let's take a listen to some of the attendants' voices.
What is wrong is that they make decisions for us. This is no longer democracy.
The fact that there is a pass is a restriction to my freedom, and in my opinion, it's a division of society into two groups of citizens.
The Belgian government held off on additional measures last Thursday, though, but warned that the coming weeks will be difficult. The country saw an increase of 96% in new coronavirus cases between December 30th and January 5th, with an average of over 17,500 cases a day. In the Czech Republic, thousands of people took to the streets on Sunday as well, calling for the withdrawal of planned mandatory vaccination for certain age groups and professions. The government had announced last month that starting in March, citizens aged 60 and above and civil servants in specific sectors will be required to get inoculated against COVID-19. Meanwhile, similar protests were held in several cities in Germany, France, Italy, and Vienna throughout the weekend.
Right, now, so public protests in Europe appear more centered on against, that is, mandatory vaccination than the vaccine pass itself.
There's a mix of those. Some are more frustrated about the vaccine pass because it won't let them enter specific venues, but others are especially more angered about the mandatory vaccination plans of some governments, because some are considering that move, or many have already considered that move. But in France, a latest government official commented that compulsory vaccination won't encourage the nation's people in getting vaccinated, and cited the vaccine pass as a more effective way. Let's take a listen.
We have made the choice for the health pass and then the vaccine pass and got results. After the announcement of the health pass this summer, 12 million French people went to get vaccinated. After the announcement of the change from the health pass into a vaccination pass, there we saw once again an increase in people getting vaccinated who got their booster shots.
Right, I see. Moving forward, so I understand Latin America is witnessing frightening resurgences.
Right, Sunny. The Omicron variant is responsible to fresh resurgences in that region. We talked about Argentina last week. Now, this time, let's focus on Mexico. Over the weekend, Mexico has reached an all-time high of over 30,000 single-day cases and has also surpassed 300,000 accumulated COVID-19 deaths on the weekend. Now, cluster infections of pilots and flight attendants have led to hundreds of delays and cancellations of flights since last week throughout the weekend. Australia, also hit hard by the fast-spreading Omicron variant, meanwhile exceeded 1 million cases on Monday, with at least 55,000 new cases from New South Wales and Victoria, with other territories' figures to be confirmed later in the day. Following a much more successful containment than others for the past 2 years, more than half of the country's total cases were posted in the past week. So that really is an example that shows us how fast the situation can really change with this highly contagious Omicron variant.
Right. And ahead of the Winter Olympics, neighboring China, I understand, has reported an outbreak in Tianjin.
Right, Sunny. The major port city has reported a domestic cluster infection of some 20 people, including children, between Saturday and Sunday. At least 2 of them were confirmed to be the Omicron variant, and this has opted authorities to conduct a mass testing of all 14 million residents, which started on Sunday, and asked them to not leave the city unless necessary. The Olympic host city is located about 115 kilometers northwest of Tianjin. Chinese authorities are concerned amid preparations for the Winter Olympics in Beijing, with China continuously focusing on its zero-tolerance policy, which involves these mass testings and lockdowns in the run-up to the Games.
Right. Hopefully the Games will have a safe start and a safe end. All right, so as always, thank you very much for those updates.
My pleasure.
Korean actor Yeong-su has secured the Golden Globes for Best Supporting Actor in Television for his part in Netflix's Squid Game. Now, this achievement makes Oh the first Korean actor to win an award in the Golden Globes history. Actor Lee Jung-jae has also been nominated for the Best Performance by an Actor in a Television Series Drama for his role as the protagonist of Squid Game, while the Korean dystopian drama itself is also looking to bring home the Best Television Series Drama Award. And up next, we offer you a glimpse of artificial intelligence and its potential use in the field of journalism in the near future, as demonstrated at this year's Consumer Electronics Show over in Las Vegas with the support of one of our own colleagues. Our Omjil reports.
It is very nice to have you here.
This is Connyoung Jennifer Moon, principal anchor and managing editor of Arirang News. You may think, are you positive? Look again. It's AI Jennifer, the AI version of our very own Moon Connyoung, and this is their very first time meeting with one another.
It's actually my first time seeing myself after filming all that hours. I think this is where the future will be.
Actually, if I went to like the anchor station, TV station, I would be able to see her, given the news.
Well, on TV you'll be able to see her.
Arirang TV, a global network broadcast to more than 100 countries, and Deep Brain AI, a South Korean honoree of this year's CES Innovation Award for real-time video and voice synthesis technology, have teamed up to create AI Anchor Moon. Unveiled for the very first time at CES 2022 in Las Vegas, users of the lifelike Anchor can type in whatever text they would like the AI Anchor to read off.
Right now, I gotta write the article, I gotta do the news, and I gotta do one-on-ones, I gotta go out in field reporting. But as for her, I'll just write up an article and she can deliver it right away.
Not only she can move and present the news like Connyoung Moon, both in English and Korean, but she can interact with people in real time.
What do you like about CES?
CES 2022 will be housing various technologies, particularly in newly trending metaverse, robotics, and artificial intelligence such as myself.
In this case, it's an AI anchor, but the firm's video synthesis solution leverages the power of artificial intelligence to create human-based AI avatars so that users can choose from a list of AI humans and professions for relevant industries.
Any users can create their own AI videos. You can choose AI model first, and then you can type the text script, and then you can create AI videos within just a few seconds. And many users are using this AI studios.com for AI news and AI online classes and any other uses.
By bringing this technology to CES 2022, the ambition is to position and expand Deep Brain AI in the US as well as the global market. But this breakthrough begs the question, can AI really replace humans in the journalistic profession?
This could be a great instrument, I suppose, to guide people through and to complement the kind of labor, the human labor. But as for anchors, I don't know about that, because we're all storytellers, we're journalists, so we have our opinions. I don't think she can quite express her own opinions just yet, unlike the real me.
Ji-young, Arirang News, Las Vegas.
Thank you.
In Kazakhstan, the country is reeling from the aftermath of violent public protests against the government. Our Kim Hyo-san has more.
Kazakhstan authorities say violent riots have stabilized in all regions of the country following the deadliest outbreak of violence in 3 decades of independence. They explained law enforcement agencies has seized back control of administrative buildings, with vital services being restored. The news comes as media outlets reported that nearly 6,000 people have been arrested and over 160 people killed. Fuel price rises sparked the unrest a week ago in the western provincial areas of the energy-rich country. They quickly spread to other large cities, with riots erupting and police opening fire on protesters. The country's interior ministry said the unrest caused around $200 million of property damage. It added over 100 businesses and banks were attacked and looted, and over 400 vehicles destroyed. Supermarkets were also reopening on Sunday amid fears of food shortages. To deal with the unrest, the Russia-led Collective Security Treaty Organization has sent about 2,500 troops to the country as peacekeepers. In addition, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he will remain in constant contact with his Kazakh counterpart and hold an emergency video conference on the matter. Kim Hyo-san, Arirang News.
In other news, the performing arts industry here in Korea has a busy schedule this year with a host of classical musicians, conductors and dancers to grace the local stage. Our Kim Bo-kyung reports.
As if to quench the audience's thirst with mesmerizing performances, big-name orchestras and world-class Korean artists currently based overseas are visiting South Korea this year. The winner of the last year's Chopin competition, Bruce Liu, along with several runner-ups, will be staging the 18th Chopin Competition Prize Winners Gala Recital in February at Seoul Arts Center. The last gala recital was held in 2016 with pianist Cho Sung-jin, the winner of the 17th edition. Liu previously held the concert with the Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra in Seoul last November, as part of a world tour as the winner of the competition, and as experts say his playing style is quite simple compared to other pianists, fans of classical music might want to check out how different his playing is. This year is quite a big year for classical music lovers because several prestigious, globally recognized orchestras are coming to Seoul. For the first time ever, the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, led by young music director Yannick Nézet-Séguin, will perform with the Met Opera's renowned singers, including mezzo-soprano Joyce De Donato. In October, the London Symphony Orchestra, led by Simon Rattle, will have its first performance in Seoul in 4 years. And it will be one of the last chances to see Rattle in front of the LSO, as he will be heading to Munich next year as the chief conductor of the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra next year. The show could be even more intriguing as pianist Cho Sung-jin is going to collaborate too. In ballet, the first Korean étoile, meaning star of the Paris Opera Ballet, ballerina Park Se-eun is going to perform for the first time in Korea with her étoile and premier colleagues at Lotte Concert Hall in July under the show titled 2022 Étoile Gala. And the international tour of the musical Lion King is to reach Seoul in January before heading to Busan in April. 김보경, 아리랑 뉴스.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. 10 people are dead following the tragic collapse of a canyon rockface on top of boats visiting a waterfall in southeastern Brazil on Saturday. According to authorities, a tower of rock suddenly broke away from the canyon wall and came crashing down, crushing one of the leisure boats.
4 vessels were affected at the time of the rock's collapse, and 2 vessels were directly impacted.
The collapse also injured some 30 tourists hit by the falling rocks. The region experienced heavy rainfall for 2 weeks, which experts believe could have loosened the rock face. At least 22 tourists, including 10 children, have died in freezing temperatures in northern Pakistan after being stranded in their vehicles, as thousands flocked to enjoy the snow. According to the country's interior minister, more than a meter of snow fell in the area of the Murray Hills Resort overnight Friday and early Saturday, trapping thousands of cars on roadways. Army platoons and paramilitary forces have been deployed to the area to help with rescue operations.
A helicopter service will soon be started, but the weather is not good right now. As soon as the weather gets better, we'll start a helicopter service to rescue any people stranded in the far-off jungles, God willing.
The snowfall began last Tuesday night and continued at regular intervals, attracting thousands of tourists. However, due to the huge number of visitors, many vehicles ended up getting stranded on roads. Local media reports over 100,000 cars entered the area during this time. The 6.9 magnitude earthquake that struck China's northwest province of Qinghai on Saturday has resulted in no reported casualties so far. However, 9 people have sustained injuries, with 8 of them already being discharged from hospital. Local authorities say the earthquake affected nearly 6,000 people in the province, with 65 people from 16 households whose homes were damaged being relocated. A total of 217 houses were seriously damaged in the quake, as parts of local roads, bridges, and water pipelines were also damaged. The neighboring Gansu province has also activated a level 3 emergency response after several village houses affected by the earthquake reported cracks on walls. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Up next, we bring you our weekly segment of Biz Now. And for that, I have our Ji Abili from the Korea Economic Daily's Global Edition here in the studio with me. Ji, it's good to see you again.
Same here, Sunny. So in today's segment, let's take a look at a historic win for Korea's top automotive giant and about the impact of Seoul's strengthened antitrust regulations. For the first time in 35 years, Hyundai Motor Group beat Japanese rival Honda Motor Company in the United States last year. In 2021, it became the fifth largest player in the world's #2 car market. Hyundai Motor Company and Kia Corporation, the two car makers of South Korea's #2 conglomerate, sold a record 1.5 million units together in the U.S. last year. That's up 22% from the previous year, according to Automotive News. Meanwhile, Honda's U.S. sales grew 9% to 1.5 million units in 2021. Hyundai sold 787,702 vehicles, and Kia supplied 701,416 units, both record highs. General Motors gave up the throne at home to Toyota Motor for the first time in 90 years. Experts say that's a sign that the automotive chip shortage, surge in demand for eco-friendly models, and decline in internal combustion engine vehicles have rattled the global automotive industry.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, Ji, I hear the Carlyle Group has purchased Hyundai Glovis shares. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So, U.S. private equity juggernaut, the Carlyle Group, has bought a 10% stake in Hyundai Glovis, worth approximately 611 billion won, or $510 million US dollars. Hyundai Motor Group announced last Wednesday that its chairman Chung Eui-sun and his father, honorary chairman Chung Mong-gu, unloaded the shares through block trading. According to a regulatory filing by Hyundai Glovis, Chung Eui-sun, the biggest shareholder, sold more than a 3% stake. The senior Chung, the third largest shareholder, sold a near 7% stake, the entirety of his holdings in Glovis. With the latest sale, Carlyle becomes the third largest shareholder in Hyundai Glovis. Chairman Chung remains the largest shareholder with a 19.99% stake, followed by Norwegian logistics firm with an 11% stake and Hyundai Motor Company with a 4.88% stake.
Right. Ji, and how does this latest setup relate to Korea's antitrust regulations?
Well, the stake sale follows the Korean government's decision to strengthen the antitrust regulations on inter-affiliate trading by conglomerates. Now, with the divestment, the Chung family's stake in the affiliate is now lowered to below 20%. Previously, the Fair Trade Act banned a conglomerate from providing favors to a listed affiliate of which the owner family holds a minimum 30% stake. Since December 30th of last year, however, the threshold has been revised down to a stake of 20% or more.
Right. I believe we have time for one more story, Ji. What is the latest on the startup scene?
Well, let's take a look at the entertainment sector. Online game developer Nexon has completed a $400 million investment in Agbo, a U.S. entertainment company. Avengers film series co-directors Anthony and Joe Russo and film producer Mike LaRosa founded the company. The strategic minority investment has resulted in Nexon owning at least a 38% stake in Agbo, becoming the second largest shareholder after the entertainment company's management. Nexon says it will invest up to an additional $100 million in the first half of this year if requested by Agbo. Now, through the investment, Nexon will accelerate its global expansion of the intellectual property in film and television rights. The gaming company will also support Agbo's production and ownership of content, including through online games and virtual worlds. That's all for me today.
All right, Ji, as always, thank you very much for the coverage.
Good to be with you, Sunny.
Korea's daily COVID-19 tallies appear to be showing signs of improvement, but authorities remain on high alert amid the possibility of an alarming resurgence fueled by Omicron, which is precisely the case in quite a number of countries elsewhere. For more, I have Dr. Kim Seung-taek from Institute Pasteur Korea. Welcome back, Dr. Kim.
Good afternoon.
I also have Professor Cyril Cohen at Bar-Ilan University over in Israel live on the line. Professor Cohen, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Right, we'll start here in the studio then. Dr. Kim, as my colleague Min Jung mentioned, there are pundits who are projecting that Korea's daily tally could hit 20,000 cases in mid-March if Omicron takes root on the local front. Do you share this outlook?
Well, the number was actually just obtained by some simulation, the result. And the simulation is actually based on some several just assumption. It's like some human behavior and then just the SARS-CoV-2 variant, in this case, Omicron. And then depending on the variables, actually the numbers can be like 20,000 or even just maybe just less than the 20,000. So it actually depends on those kind of the variables right now.
I see. And Dr. Kim, Korea's current COVID-19 prevention guidelines are poised to end on the 16th of this month. Now, having said that, what needs to be considered before making a decision with regard to the fate of our current measures?
Well, it's just a tough decision. But anyway, just the government officials and also some private sector experts will just get together and then decide which direction we have to just go forward. But I think, in this case, there's a number of just factors to be included, just to consider. The first of all is the right end of the such kind of the potential extension, or like some alleviation of the current measures. There's going to be some Lunar New Year's holidays. This is one of the biggest, annual event for us as Korean people. So many people will just get together, just a family reunion. This is kind of just a very, it's kind of just the event that maybe just transmit many just viruses, especially considering the very highly contagious Omicron variant. And also we also just consider some living with COVID-19. And this is basically just a long-term project. This is a long-term just a projection is the living with COVID-19, but this kind of the variables like holidays and variant is kind of just complicating the situation. So eventually just the people will get together and then decide which the way we have to go for now.
Right. Professor Cohen, I believe Israel is fighting a fifth wave led by Omicron. What can you tell us about the COVID-19 situation there right now?
Yes, good morning, Sunny. Thank you for having me. So basically what we are seeing right now is that the cases are going up very quickly. We were able, compared to other countries, to stop I would say, the spread of the Omicron during a month, more or less. We stayed around 400, 500 cases, and then it went up to 1,000 around 2 weeks ago. The week after that, 4,000, and now we're around 20,000. It's extremely rapid. It's contaminating quite quickly. We have around 200 patients right now in severe cases. Most of them are actually Delta patients. But again, the Omicron is spreading fast, and it is also causing some severe cases, less than the Delta, but it can cause severe cases. So one of the most important things you could do in order to prepare yourself is to get your testing capacity, I would say, expanded as much as you can, because we are now saturating. We cannot do as many tests as we want, because there's so many people, as you are just showing the pictures, it's a long line to get your test done. So get ready for that, because you cannot stop the Omicron.
Right, and Professor Cohen, I will get back to you with regard to the testing strategy. But first off then, what can you share with us about the measures in place right now to tackle this latest outbreak that's led to more than 20,000 cases a day in Israel?
Yeah, so basically we do not have a lot of measures. We have what we call the Green Pass, but even now the Green Pass is not that efficient. The Green Pass is like, I would say, way for you to access, some venues, etc., when you are vaccinated or a PCR negative test. But even that, it's no longer effective as far as we know. And basically, we don't have a lot of measures. We are trying to limit contacts, but even that, we are not limiting gathering. Israel has decided to go and try to live with COVID-19. I don't know if it is the best option, but it is the reality, because it's very difficult to stop the Omicron. So unless you have a lockdown, and we do not want to have a lockdown, we are willing to try and mitigate the effect of the Omicron by vaccinating people, especially the fourth dose that was enacted, I would say, a few days ago.
Right. Right. Now, going to the topic of testing strategy that Professor Cohen mentioned, Dr. Kim, health officials here are looking to expand the option of rapid home tests for asymptomatic patients in line with preparations for a frightening rebound in daily cases. What are your thoughts on this particular measure?
Well, I think rapid antigen test is ultimately the way we have to go, and then because since we are actually just planning on some at-home treatment for all the COVID-19 patients, whether it is asymptomatic or symptomatic, and then all our some medical steps, actually also the testing just a step cannot actually just deal with all those all the infection cases, especially it's a very highly just spreading Omicron the variant, and then there are some cons and the pros and cons for each different diagnostic test. For the PCR based test, it is very accurate. Sometimes it is just sensitive. So, I think it's probably almost 2 years ago, there was a concern that some patients, even just after recovering from the COVID-19, this PCR-based method could detect the viral RNA even after a recovery, 3 months after recovery. So what that means is actually this test is actually detecting the the dead virus particle, some viral genomic RNA that is still floating around in our systems. So this is maybe oversensitive. So this is not really something that we can pursue for the long term. But for the rapid antigen test, in terms of accuracy, this is less sensitive. But there are many now some commercial home tested kits, which actually testing, I actually have to distinguish this. There are some home test kits which this is actually detected viral protein. Although this is very less sensitive, but the kits can detect whether some person is positive or just negative. In the case of whether the person is infectious or not. So some people might for example, some people just got infected with these viruses, but do not transmit the viruses. But these home test kits, most of the home test kits now available is that can distinguish whether people can transmit the viruses or not. So in terms of the infectiousness, I think the rapid antigen test is still very helpful. So it's just a kind of a question whether we pursue accuracy or a frequency. I mean, for the rapid home antigen test, we can pursue more frequent testing. So then does distinguish whether this infected person can transmit the viruses to the other naive persons or not. So I think in terms of living into COVID-19, this rapid antigen test is the way we have to go.
I see. And staying with that, Professor Cohen, authorities in Israel, for their part, have announced changes to their testing strategy as testing facilities, like you mentioned, have been overwhelmed by the Omicron outbreak. Now, this reportedly includes expanding the employment of rapid antigen tests. Are there any concerns there over broadening the use of this testing method?
Yes, so basically what is happening right now is that we are shifting some of the, I would say, management of that crisis from the government to the people, to their responsibility to be tested. And if they are tested, they should stay at home. Actually, they have to do an antigenic test that is done by an official source. But problem is that I want to rebound on what you just said in the studio. First, not all the antigenic testing is accurate. We have now data that some of those tests are really not able to recognize the Omicron in an efficient way, so we shouldn't rely on them. The second thing is that sometimes you have some false negative around, some I would say estimation stock with certain tests of about 50% of false negative, which is, I would say, a very bad thing. True, usually when you are contagious, the tests tend to be positive, but again, it's not always the case. So I think that we are now considering getting back to PCR for some of the people that we know for sure that were exposed. So right now, the PCR is only for the age of 60 and above. Right now, what we are considering is to get back this week to 60 and above, but also for everyone that wants, but also to people that are below the age of 60, but we know for sure that they were exposed. So at least we have a better way to manage the crisis. And don't forget, PCR tests are, of course, a thing that you can do. You don't have to pay for them. But antigenic tests, or at least the tests that you are doing at home, you have to buy them. And some people might not buy them and therefore might not test themselves and know that they are infected.
Right, of course, that is a concern here as well. Professor Cohen, Israel is also pioneering a second booster shot campaign for those aged 60 and above, those with pre-existing health conditions, as well as healthcare workers. What can you tell us about the efficacy of the fourth dose of the COVID-19 vaccine and about the side effects reported thus far?
Yeah, so basically we started around a month ago to administer first to immunocompromised people, or to give them the possibility to get a fourth shot of vaccine. And 2 weeks ago for people over the age of 60 and the healthcare people. And basically what we know so far, we don't have a lot of data, but what we know is that around 200,000 people already got the shot, or at least set an appointment to get the shot. Most of the side effects are really similar to what we have seen after the third dose or second dose. So usually fever, I would say pain at the injection site, and it lasts for a few days. And other than that, in terms of efficacy, what we have seen basically is that it can bring back, your level of antibody to what it was after the third shot, but it's not going over that. So we don't know to what extent this will protect people, especially against the Omicron variant, from contamination, because what we're seeing right now is that vaccines cannot protect to a good efficacy, to a good effectiveness against contamination, even if you have 3 shots from contamination from the Omicron, but still vaccines, the third shot, and we're going to see that for the fourth shot, I guess, in a few days, can protect really well from severe disease. And that's why people need to get vaccinated, especially people at risk against COVID, because the vaccine can protect from severe cases.
Right, which is why Dr. Kim, authorities here in the country are also looking into the possibility of a fourth dose to those who are immunocompromised. What are your thoughts with regard to a fourth dose of COVID-19 vaccines?
Well, basically, we don't have just enough data to pursue the first, just the second, sort of just the second of the booster shot for this COVID-19 vaccine. And like Dr. Cohen said, that now Israel and some other countries are actually just probably doing this sort of the second booster shot just campaign. So it would be better for us to just wait for some data from there, just the trials, and see whether it is good for just the immunocompromised persons in Korea as well. And then additional thing that we can actually think about is that there is some additional option that we can think about. But maybe in terms of a cost, it is not really just feasible at this moment. But one of the things is that actually AstraZeneca is actually developed some monoclonal antibodies cocktails, which is called the Evusheld. And this is very long-lasting antibody. I think this is it can actually last up to 6 months. It actually in the injected person. So this is what the previous I just talked about, some sort of just a passive vaccination, just instead of active vaccination. This is passive vaccination. Is we actually just administer just antibodies into the people instead of just eliciting just antibodies by just vaccination. So this is maybe just a cost issue, but this is one of the things that we can actually think about.
Right. Professor Cohen, this is an impromptu question, but I was wondering, do you think that vaccinations, COVID-19 vaccinations that is, would become a regular campaign in the months or years ahead?
Yeah, this is a question we've been having actually. So basically what we think is that we could end up in a scenario like, for example, the flu, because we might need some booster shots. I'm talking mainly for the vulnerable people, for people, that have, some comorbidities or some underlying disease, for people that are old or for people at risk. We believe that this might become, and I say might become, a way to prevent, yearly the waves of the COVID-19. But again, we don't know. It's really dependent on the variants. You can see that here now we have a variant that is perhaps less dangerous, so we are letting up trying to live with COVID-19. But if, in 3 months we have a new variant, a Sigma variant, that is much more dangerous, you might not get a vaccine that is tailored to that, and perhaps you will need a shot earlier, or perhaps you will. So I think it's very early to say. We hope that with natural exposure and vaccines, we'll get to a more endemic situation.
Right, hopefully. Dr. Kim, moving ahead, Pfizer's antiviral pill Paxlovid will arrive here in the country this week. What are your prospects on its impact on Korea's containment efforts?
I think just based on their phase 3 clinical trials, ideally you would expect 80 to just 89% of efficacy, which is actually preventing the progression to severe disease. And then, within the 5 days of the symptom onset. And then to accomplish this sort of ideal just efficacy, we need some faster diagnosis, because this is as an antiviral drug and it has to be administered as soon as possible after just the confirming the COVID-19. And then after diagnosis, the very quick just prescription, and then there should be some kind of just a delivery from the pharmacies to the COVID-19 patient. And then this is oral drugs is one of the weapon that we have, especially for our at-home treatment, just the guidelines for now.
Right. And Professor Cohen, Israel has already received its shipment of Paxlovid. What has been the impact of its use within the medical arena there?
Yeah, so that's correct. So the point is that we got Paxlovid around 2 weeks ago also, with delaying I would say, the arrival of the Omicron, we're able to get in the meantime, the Paxlovid. So far, I would say tens of patients are getting Paxlovid. It is well tolerated. The problem is the logistic. You need to actually identify the good or the right patients to get that medicine. So that's why in Israel we have implemented a kind of algorithm in order to determine who are, the patients that will benefit most from that, I would say, medicine. For example, if they are not vaccinated, if they have, obesity, etc., etc. So each patient has actually a grade, of severity, and based on that, if it can get, he or she can get the Paxlovid. The other thing to take also into account is that there are some interactions with other medicines. So you have also to take that into account. But if a patient like that is exposed, the problem is that with Omicron, you are exposed quite quickly. So it's very difficult to pinpoint the patient. But if a patient that is eligible to that is exposed, he can get to the doctor and then he will get the medicine. And so far what we have seen is that it's okay. I mean, it seems to be working, but the numbers are still, I would say, very low. So more on that, I would say, next time we talk.
Right, hopefully then. Professor Cohen, Israel reported the first case of what has now become known as flurona. What are your thoughts on the potential risk of a widespread twindemic this time around?
Yeah, no, I mean, the main problem right now in Israel is actually flu, because, we have around 500 people hospitalized in Israel with corona, but around 900 people hospitalized with flu. So we have 2 waves of, I would say, respiratory viruses striking right now in Israel, like other countries. Again, I wouldn't be that concerned about the flurona, being infected at the same time with 2 viruses. It was actually a young woman of the age of 31 that was infected. Actually, she was well after that. But again, I think that we need to be cautious. The good news is that, the way we have to prevent ourselves from flu and from COVID-19 are the same. Wearing a mask, social distancing, of course, getting vaccinated for flu and for COVID-19. So I think that so far, we don't have like many cases of that flurona. I don't think it is a problem, the same, person being infected with that anecdotally, but we do have to be aware that flu actually is causing also a burden on our hospitals with corona, and that is not easy to manage. We're hoping for the best, especially with the Omicron, hoping that even if it's spreading fast, we won't have so many people sick in severe condition so that our hospitals will be overwhelmed. These are our projections, but projections are changing quite fast. So let's hope for the best. It's going to be a tough winter and a tough January month.
Right, it is. Dr. Kim, as my colleague Min Jung again mentioned earlier on, researchers in Cyprus have reported a variant that possesses the traits of both the Omicron and the Delta. Now, pundits in the UK and at the WHO, like she mentioned, claim the variant may be the result of a contamination in the laboratory. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it could be. I mean, I cannot just rule out any just possibility. But the way actually the virus actually generated the variants, actually there are several just ways that the virus can do. One of the thing is in some way just this virus actually came from some genetic origin. It's like maybe just a bat or any other some intermediate host. And then once the virus is actually just moved from one host to different host, now the environment is changing. So sort of just the ancestral just strain of the virus now has to try to just adapt themselves in the new environment, because the host environment is quite different from the previous host and now new host. So this virus is an RNA virus. In the RNA virus, it's basically the viral genomic replication is not really just reliable, because there is no just error, just correcting mechanism, although there are some limited just capacity in the case of coronaviruses. But then somehow by inducing some many random just mutation, viruses try to just sort of just find the virus which is actually just more fit in terms of viral replication in the new host. And there are some other factors, for example, like some immune just suppression. Now we have many people are actually vaccinated, and some people have got immunity after natural infection. So the antibodies maybe could just exert some selective force on the some virus replication. In that case, it's like the same just mechanism. The virus is not just the intentional just the movement, but the mutation. So although maybe the initial mutation may just damage the virus replication, but in the end there's some trade-off. The virus, if a virus can just attain certain just replication efficiency, and while sacrificing some, while actually compensate for some immune evasion, then the virus is trying to find a way to just balance viral replication and sort of just immune evasion. So then that's one of the way that the virus just evolve into certain just variant. So that's one of the probably just one of the example is E484K. That actually just certain mutation is known to be very just immune evasive, just the properties. So that's kind of just one of the thing. And then even this recombination is not really just not really a rare event. I mean, even just some other viruses, if any some two virus, very similar virus infected the same just host cells, then in the case of the replication processor, if there's a certain just overlap within the two just viral genomes, the viruses actually tend to just recombine. So I don't know, I actually did not examine all the sequence information from this sort of just a delta clone, but then there is some possibility that kind of a recombination of these two viruses, if that happens.
Right, so it's too early to draw any conclusions then.
Sure.
All right, Dr. Kim, as always, thank you very much for your thoughts. And Professor Cohen over in Israel, thank you very much for your insight today.
Thank you, Kamsanida.
Right. One way of easing the burden on healthcare workers amid Omicron is to ensure personal safety. So do wash your hands, wear your face masks, and watch your distance and get your flu vaccine, as Professor Cohen has said. Thank you for watching.